What is the most outrageous thing you've done while being manic?
Oh, Lord, that list is a mile long. Let me see. Outrageous? I would say I went skinny dipping in the Ontario Lake.
What? You did what?
I went skinny dipping in the nasty, dirty, disgusting Ontario Lake once. That's probably one of the strangest things.
Okay, that's definitely outrageous.
Dysh. 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 Dysh.
Hey, y'all. It's Onika.
And J.R.
And you are dishing with Dainty Dish. How you doing, J.R.?
I am doing fantastic. It's July, so, I'm doing all right. Happy, second Wednesday of the month. I think, is it?
All kinds of crazy.
So I'm just, doing some dodging the balls, and
dodging the balls.
Yeah, that came out wrong.
That came out completely wrong.
But that's what I'm doing.
But that's what it is.
That's what it is.
It's dodging of balls.
The dodging of the balls.
Yeah.
So I'm not reading anything right now because it's summertime and I'm too busy dodging balls. But other than that, what are you doing?
I haven't been up to much. Got my hair done recently. I'm excited for Caravana that's going to be coming up.
Oh yeah, we're doing that.
We're playing mass with our cousin D.
Family
we have
affair.
to ask D if we could say her name on the podcast because she's going to be on here eventually anyway. So
we're going to pull her on for the Caravana episode.
Yeah, for the Caravana episode.
We'll
so yeah, I'm just trying to get into shape for Caravana, so my gut won't be hanging out. But even if it is, it's all right.
Nobody cares. That's the best part.
Nobody cares. But as I was saying earlier, it's all kinds of crazy Wednesdays. And I would like to introduce our guest for the day, Jesse.
Yeah.
Say hello, Jesse.
Hey, what up, y'all? Jesse come from the T.O.
Jesse, I just want to start by saying thank you so much, Jesse, for being on the show. We really appreciate you coming on today to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and you are one of probably the funniest people I think that I've met in a really long time.
You sure you don't?
It's gonna be.
You sure you don't mean funny looking there? Or?
No. I mean, you're a very handsome chap. Don't worry about it.
Right,
don't worry about it.
I'll take that.
Take it.
Take it. Put it in your pocket.
Put it in your pocket. Save it for later. Whatever.
All right.
Yeah, but we're glad to have you on the podcast today, and we've got a couple of questions for you. But first, we want to ask how you're doing.
I'm doing all right. Had a pretty good day. Just working hard and got to do some yoga in the park. Love it when it gets to be this type of weather because I get to get out and check out all the spots around the T-Dot, otherwise known as a 6, as all you know it. And try to get out in the parks and walk around there and, say hello to the people that look like they need it. So
that's nice.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah, I always try to strike up a conversation with somebody who looks really surly and grumpy. You know what I mean? Just say hello and maybe give them a compliment and make them feel good, make them feel nice, and hopefully they'll do something for somebody else down the road.
Pass the energy along.
That's something you got. Yeah. It's all about the positive vibes, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're a city with a lot of people and a lot more coming in, and, I'd rather be putting out good vibes than the alternative, right? So when you put out some good vibes and you put it out all around you, not that I do it for this reason, but it does come back, you don't know. So, so it's all about the positive vibes. You don't have to live in Jamaica to have the rust of experience in your mind and in the way you treat people. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying.
One love.
On the positive tip, one love.
One love.
So let's before we start out, we typically ask our guests one question from our inaugural episode, the 21 questions.
Yes.
I don't remember a question off the top of my head at this moment, so I'm looking at you, Onika, just to ask that question, and I'm gonna put you on the spot. So there you go.
Oh, awesome. If you didn't have to sleep, what would you do with all of your extra spare time?
Wow. Okay, I gotta think about that for a minute. If I didn't have to sleep, I would probably be at the casino a lot longer. Only if the fact of the matter is that I have a lot of money to work with, which I don't. Yeah, that's what I'd be like one of those guys that, you know, like you come in the casino in the morning, the guy's there. You leave like hours later, the guy's there. You know what I mean? This guy, he does, you know what I mean? Like he's starting to smell because he's on the poker table so long, and he's not even taking meals, man. He's like running out, grabbing something quick, fast, and then bringing it back and eating it at the poker table. You know, like
That'd be you.
that's probably a dude. If I wasn't doing that, I would be by water. My element is water. I love water. Being right by the lake, being by rivers and streams, being by the ocean. Love to be on the beach. I'm pretty actually, I got a little bit of sun. I'm not as pasty as I was a couple of months ago, but yeah, just being close to the water, those waves crashing in, you know what I'm saying, and just laying there and listening to the beautiful waves. So
it's the casino or the beach.
Yeah, or maybe a bit of both. We'll go with a bit of both.
A casino on a beach.
That
would be
you
ideal.
go. Well, I've said to
ideal.
folks I know so many times, they try to, like, you know, cut me off now because I've told them so many times. But my ideal place to live is like some condo on the water near a casino. Like that's how I want to retire, is, you know.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
There you go.
Good.
So that's
All right. So, Jesse, let's tell the listeners a bit about yourself, so we can get some context on where we're going today with this episode.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm excited because we spent like a good hour just kicking it before this, and it was a good time.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to see where we're going now.
Yeah.
All right. So let's tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. So my name is Jesse. Those who know me call me Jess, and I have a lot of other different nicknames. I won't get going on with them. I like when people call me Jess. It makes me feel good. I guess just to give you a little bit of a glimpse into my life, I grew up in Toronto, in the middle of Toronto. Went to high school in Toronto. Had a pretty good childhood. You know, nothing wrong, nothing to worry about. I was never a quick learner throughout school. Took me a lot of time to get things that most kids got in far less time. But life was good. You know, I lived in a home with my parents and my sister, and we all had a great relationship. I was, from very young, I was kind of a sports kid because my dad got me into all types of different sports. You know, played soccer, baseball, hockey, football, basketball. And grade 9 and 10 was great. I was getting good grades. Everything was good. In grade 11, I started doing a lot of street drugs. So I started smoking weed and hash. Then I got into LSD, magic mushrooms, cocaine, ecstasy, speed. So from a young age, I was using a lot of different drugs. In grade 11, as I was saying, I was doing these drugs. So that's when I started skipping school. And what it really looked like was I would basically skip school and hang out in the ravine or hang out at people's houses in the backyards and just smoke weed. And it got to the point where I was smoking like a half quad every day, which is a lot of weed, especially good weed, right? As we were discussing earlier.
Especially if it's the good shit.
Because of where I grew up and who my friends were, I had access to really, really good weed. And it was for experimental purposes back then because I didn't show any signs of mental health issues at that point. So I experimented with weed and smoked it a lot and did all those drugs. And a few years later, and I don't know if I was popular, but I was somebody who bounced from a lot of different cliques. You know, you had the artists and musicians over here, and then you had the jocks over here, and you know, they had their own thing, and I was kind of bouncing in between. And because one side of me was a real jock, I played sports, and the other side of me was an artist and a musician, and I became a singer. And I was a singer in a couple of different rock bands when I was younger, and I had a lot of girlfriends.
And, you've got to mention that
for sure. And life was good for the most part. So I didn't really see much of mental health issues and addictions. Well, the addictions, of course, was there. But we didn't call it addictions. It was just us doing drugs. Like, we weren't addicts. We didn't have addictions. We were just doing drugs recreationally. So there was a big shift from that space to developing schizophrenia and experiencing psychosis in a negative way. So at the end of high school, and I barely got my high school diploma. In fact, I got my high school diploma by taking grade 10 Spanish and in night school. And I got a 50%, and I'm pretty sure the teacher felt sorry for me and gave me the credit. Wow. So I barely got my high school diploma, and I never went back to do college or university. I've never been a well-educated man on the books. I like to say I have more street cred, you know, like knowledge from, you know, really going through stuff and being out on the streets and in the system, right? So I'll talk about that in a bit. But so around the same time I was graduating high school, I started to experience mental health issues. And one of the first things I experienced was paranoia, right? So what paranoia looked at like for me was I'd be in the schoolyard, and there'd be a bunch of students over here talking and laughing. And I thought they were laughing at me. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So paranoid that they were laughing at me. But then my illness spiraled into something a lot worse. My illness is very religious. I wasn't raised religiously. In fact, I hadn't set foot in a church or read the Bible until I became psychotic. So there was no history in my childhood of religion, but somehow my illness became religion-based and Christian-based in particular, right? So I started hearing voices, okay? And the best way I can explain what it's like to hear voices is, you know, when you're thinking, right, and you have your regular thoughts, right? you're hearing your own voice as your thoughts. Would you guys agree with me on that?
Yes.
Yeah. So I had that regular thought process, but then I would have additional voices from within my head on top of my own thoughts and voice.
Oh.
So on the left side, I heard a very commanding, destructive male voice that I believe was a devil. On the right side, I heard a very calming, soothing female voice that I believe was the Virgin Mary. Right? So when I started to hear these voices, I was hearing them all day, every day. Right?
Wow.
That's what it spiraled into.
Is that kind of like when people say I can't even hear myself think? Is that kind of like, do you get is that no, not a good
not quite. I think when people say I can't hear myself think, that's when there's
external noise.
Okay.
This is
right?
internal.
So this is from within my mind. So you can be having auditory from outside of your mind, or you can be having auditory from within your mind. So these voices were from within my mind.
Got it.
Right?
And why do you think they present it as religious? Why do you think that is?
You know, that's a very difficult question to answer because there was no precipitation of it. I honestly think that it happened for me not to believe I'm special or a prophet or Jesus Christ, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later, right?
We had that conversation. We talked about that. Don't worry, we'll get to it.
So it may have been like a foreshadowing of my belief and being a good Christian and representing Christ throughout the years that followed.
Okay.
Right? But at the time, it was like, well, where's this coming from? You know, like there's no history there, and why me? And what does all this mean? You know what I mean? Sometimes you experience something, but you don't get the meaning until years later. Have you had that experience before? And then you kind of say like, wow, that's what that meant. That's why I had to go through that. You know what I'm saying? It's like a eureka moment, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't know, and I still don't fully know because, like, you know, I'm not dead yet, so I'm still going to be learning things, and I'm still going to be discovering things along the way, right? So I had these voices every day, and you can keep a game face on for people around you for a while when you're hearing voices, right? Like, it's happening in your mind. And I, at the time, believed the devil could allow people to read my mind. But in a healthy sense, you realize nobody can read your mind. There's only one entity that can read your mind, and that's the Creator. That's Mother Earth. That's Gaia. That's Allah. That's Jehovah. That's Yahweh. That's God. That's Jesus Christ, right? Anyway, so I was hearing these voices every day, and after a while, I couldn't help but react to them, right? So what happened was, at first, I would reply in a talking tone in my mind. Then I would reply in a yelling tone in my mind. And then, and this is the important part, then after a while I couldn't contain myself and I yelled back at the voices out loud, right? Have you guys seen somebody on the street yelling at nothing?
Yes.
That's exactly what's happening. What they're doing is they're yelling back at their internal stimuli or their auditory hallucinations. That's what you call those, right? So that's what's happening there. They've gotten to a point where they cannot contain or control themselves anymore, and this is what you're seeing. This is what is coming out in violent bursts. And that's what happened to me. You know what I'm saying? I ended up after high school, spending some time on the streets and being through CAMH. And I grew my hair long, and I grew a long beard, and I was neglecting my hygiene. And I was out on Yonge Street, walking up and down Yonge Street, preaching at the top of my lungs, join the rich businessmen and wankers or join Jesus the people. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So, like, this was happening. And at first, so I don't know how it was happening, but I had a girlfriend at the time, right?
You still got some play.
Yeah, you better believe it.
You got some play.
No, but I had this girlfriend. She was Portuguese Catholic, and she brought me back to her parents' apartment, and they're Catholic, and they had pictures and figurines and movies, all Catholic based. And I look at a picture of Jesus Christ on the wall, and I look at the picture of Jesus and say, wow, man, I look like Jesus Christ. You know what I'm saying? Except Jesus had brown eyes in the picture and I have blue eyes. That's the only difference I could see. So I saw that as a coincidence. But a little later on, I started believing I was Jesus Christ. And yeah. And so I was Jesus Christ, and I got a job at the Dominion, what everybody now knows as the Metro.
Metro,
right?
yeah.
Used to be Dominion, showing my age a little bit. But I got a job stocking shelves, and I believed that as I was putting cans up on the shelf, I was blessing them, right? But then I thought, I can't bless all these cans. So if I touched a can a second time, I was unblessing them, right? So it took me the whole night to stock one shelf, and they fired me that night. Jesus. They fired Jesus Christ. Can you believe it?
I can't believe
right? But this is a common thread. Religion, is a very common thread for psychosis, mania, schizophrenia,
bipolar. I've had my religious moments.
The mania part in bipolar.
Yeah, I've had my religious moments.
Even head trauma or anything to do with the brain. Like for some reason, the brain reverts back to religious experiences, right? So I have my own, individual experiences, but there's a lot of y'all out there who are going through some religious stuff too, and you're not alone. You're not alone. I love to come and talk and educate people about what I've been through and connect people and yeah.
So, if you don't mind sharing, what was your actual diagnosis? When did it actually occur? Okay. And was there a long process to actually getting the correct diagnosis? Because I know we've had some other guests on the show where they've said that there's typically a long journey into getting to the point where the doctors are certain of what condition you have and how to medicate it or how to treat it.
Right. Yeah. First of all, I don't use diagnoses or labels unless I'm making a point. Mm-hmm. Right. I just wanted to clear. No. Okay. Your question was a really great question. I just had to throw that in there because I like to concentrate on experiences and recovery. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But to answer your question, so I was actually very lucky in a couple of ways. I was lucky in the way that when I became really ill and hit rock bottom, I call it, that's when I got the support I needed. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who need the services, who need the help, that don't get that help unless they hit rock bottom. That's unfortunately how the system works. A lot of the time, people will go in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out, and they won't really get the time and the bang on medication and the supports that they need to get. So because I was in really rough shape. I ended up spending my first time at KMH. I was there for 3 months. And just at the end of my stay is when they found a medication that works for me. That's one reason why I'm lucky. The other reason why is that I quit all the street drugs so they could say that I have schizophrenia and that I didn't have drug-induced psychosis. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
which is what I was diagnosed with originally.
Really? Yeah, exactly. So the difficulty with mental health and addictions issues is they go hand in hand a lot of the time, right?
They do.
Yeah. So a lot of the time the psychiatrist is thinking, is the psychosis created by the street drugs or is it created by the underlying mental
chemical
health
imbalance or issue?
Yeah, exactly. And as I was saying before, as we were discussing before, psychosis, the result of psychosis is a firing in the brain of the dopamine neurotransmitter, whereas smoking weed, the THC is firing off the dopamine transmitter as well, right? So I think they're very linked, right? So it's very, very muddy sometimes to say which is which. Sometimes, people say it's like the chicken and the egg sometimes,
That's kind of how I feel about it. I mean...
So you mentioned a bit earlier about your first stay at your stay at CAMH.
Yes.
Can you describe a little bit of that stay? A little bit.
Sure.
I know. I'm kind of curious. I like to ask people about like what their that initial stay.
Well, I'll tell you. A lot of people wouldn't agree with me, but I still get a positive feeling going to CAMH. I do a lot of volunteer work there and stuff. But my stay wasn't so bad. I think I got in a fight there, and I ended up popping a guy in the nose, and his nose ended up gushing blood all over. But
okay,
interesting.
They sort of patched him up, and he was the troublemaker, so they strapped him to a bed, and they just told me to go back to my room. So
really,
I got lucky there. He was a real jerk, though. Like, everybody on the floor hated him, so I was kind of doing everybody a favor, I guess. But
yeah, good stuff, Jesse.
Anyway, yeah, I just had enough of him. But anyway, other than that, it was, it was pretty straightforward for well, I mean, whatever straightforward means. Like,
What is straightforward?
night,
like, I know what you say when you mean straightforward for like a person who's been in a psychiatric unit.
Yeah.
But what does
There's
it mean?
meds in the morning. There's meds in the afternoon.
Medication time. I hated hearing that. Medication time. And then back when I was on the unit, there was a smoking room still, and I had quit smoking, so I called it the death room. And, there was a TV, and there was a kitchen, and there was a ping pong table, and I put the ping pong table up against the wall, and I would play ping pong with this guy, and I'd bounce the ball off the wall, and they'd say, "Off the wall, just like all you crazy buggers in here,"
Oh man!
And I had a few different roommates. This one guy, I won't mention his name, but this young black guy. We shared a room, and I remember one day he didn't say anything really. I'm surprised I heard an answer, but we were on the unit, and there was this view of Chinatown, and I looked out and I said, what do you see out there, man? I'm wondering, like, when you look out this window, what do you see? And he said to me, all I see is this glass in front of me. And that's when I realized I was locked on a unit. I didn't have my freedom.
Oh, that was the first time it hit you, eh?
That's when it really hit me, and I was like,
that moment.
I was like, I realized that, I don't have my freedom here.
No.
And I've learned, I've only had 2 hospitalizations in my time, but I learned to appreciate being able to be free. You know what I mean? And
it's glorious.
Yeah, it's a good thing. My good buddy and another guy, I won't mention his name, he's been in and out of hospital for several times in really like high security hospitals, and he's been in jail as well. And he went in and out for years. And we talk, and sometimes like we, you know, he you know, we talk about our freedom, and he says how appreciative he is of his family and of his freedom. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people out there don't know what it's like to be institutionalized, and it's, you know, it's you're treated like an animal.
It's traumatic.
You know,
it's really traumatic.
It's traumatic. And I was lucky because, you know, I didn't really experience much trauma when I was in hospital. So I consider myself very lucky, but I still have some insight into what it's like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've had 7 stays, so I know I'm well versed with what the norm is in psychiatric units. So. And
I've seen, like, so I've worked, you know, we can maybe shift into, you know, a little bit about work, but I've worked in hospital settings, and I've seen, I've been on forensic units, inpatient units, and I've been on various other low security units. And I mean, I've sat with people in inpatient forensic units, and I ask them, like, how long you been here? And some say like 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
Yeah, we had some people who were going to be lifers when I was there last time.
Lifers, exactly, yeah. And like inpatient forensics units, it's like jail. You know what I mean? You got the range, right? You got lockdown, you know, it's like, it's no joke, you know. Yeah.
So I know you said you've only had 2 stays in hospitals. Yeah. So I guess the medications you're taking or you've taken, as you mentioned before, they've worked.
Well, luckily, like what I was saying, like, you know, about you know, getting off the street drugs was very helpful for me, because the antipsychotic I'm on, when I took it, my psychiatrist tried it on me for about 2 weeks, and I wasn't showing signs of improvement. And he said, you know what, I'm going to try it a few more days. And in a few more days, all my voices disappeared, okay? So this was an important part of my life, because I could put 2 and 2 together, that this medication removed my voices. And that gave me insight into my illness, so that I could say I have schizophrenia, right?
Okay.
I was able to, because the medication took the voices away. So that was a huge pivotal moment in my life where I gained the insight, I have schizophrenia, I need to take this medication, I'm entering into recovery, and I need to access supports and get my life back on track and start doing things meaningful with my life and giving back to the community and getting out there and educating people about what I've been through, giving people themselves or their family members hope that if your loved one has been through what I've been through, you can get through it and get well and get back to like a regular life. You know what I'm saying? It, you know.
So what kind of role has your family played in your recovery?
That's a great question. My parents and my sister were beside me all of the time. You know, when I was in hospital, my mom came every single day, and we played gin rummy every day. And she would bring the Harry Potter books. That's when it was, when Harry Potter came out. So I couldn't read myself, but my mom would bring the Harry Potter books and read them to me. Okay. Right? So she was a huge support. Okay. And my dad was my dad, when I was in CAMH, brought me a journal that I still write in. all these years later. 1999, he brought me this journal. It's 2018, and I started journaling in it. I still write rhymes in it. Tons of rhymes in it. Yeah. So the family support was there. My friends all disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
That happens.
My friends all disappeared. Most of my friends were drug buddies anyway.
That's good.
So I was.
That's good. You
I
just
was
shed
okay
the skin.
I was okay to see them go, but the ones that I really cared about, they'd all disappeared. But as I got better and the word got out that I'm better, a few came back, and now I have good friendship support, and I have a handful of friends that I'm like really good with, like really good support. So yeah. So
yeah, you have to have your team. Like we talk about that, and I talk about that all the time on the podcast, how important it is to have and build your team, be it your family or your friends or your social workers, your psychiatrists, whoever it is that you deal with. You know, if you have a solid team, you know, backing you, then, you know, there's nothing that's not possible. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I really like the saying that I heard a couple of years ago. It takes a village.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It takes a village.
You heard
It
that
takes
one?
a
You heard that one?
village. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's
It took a village with
and
me.
you know what? That's like the primitive culture. That's like that's where we come from. You know what I mean? Like I was blessed to go on a safari in East Africa, in Kenya and Tanzania.
Oh, nice.
And visit this site, Olduvai, where the first human being remains is supposedly being found. So over there, you know, if you believe that all of us began in Africa, how do they do it there? And how have they been doing it for centuries?
Village.
Is the village. It takes
The
a
village.
village. You know what I'm saying?
That's how.
And so if you think about that concept and you think about the mental health community, you can think about us like that as well. You know what I'm saying?
It takes a village.
And you
a
can
village,
you can even expand that into the resources you use. You know what I'm saying? Like you can draw on several different people around you and take pieces of them to support you and to be, you know, to be well. And hopefully you'll give back as much as you can too.
Yeah.
What I've noticed is, you know, sometimes there's people who really need your help. They need to vent. They need to take some of your energy, right? They take it and they don't give it back. You know what I'm saying? And that becomes detrimental to one's wellness, right? But as a good person, you give it out anyway, because even if you don't get it back from that specific person,
you get it back somehow.
From someone else you connect with.
That's the law of energy.
But my favorite relationships are the give and take ones. You know what I'm saying? Like we're supporting each other.
For sure.
Like in my work as a peer support specialist or a peer support worker, I give a little bit, but it works really, really well when I get a little bit too, you know what I mean? Within the community. And then you start talking about community, which is, you know.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, Jesse, with that said, that has been the dish of the day.
All right.
Thank you so much, Jess, for being on the podcast and sharing your journey and your story with us. It was an amazingly wild ride for me.
It sure was.
I don't know, JR, how was it for you? Because it was an amazingly wild ride for me, and I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved every minute.
I'm at a loss for words. This is definitely a good time.
This was great. And Jesse, hopefully we will have you back on the podcast on a later date, because I need more from you.
Yeah, we just scratched the surface.
Yeah, we just scratched the surface. I need more from you, Jess. I need more.
Well, you know, it's been an honor being on this with you, and I would definitely come back. So hopefully, y'all. Hopefully, hopefully you guys won't remain strangers.
No, we won't. Next time we have to spit some of those rhymes you were talking about from your journal for the next time.
Yeah.
But
I'll bring that through. Yeah.
If you guys want to say hello to Jess. Just reach out to him, share your own personal stories, ask him any questions you might have about schizophrenia or anything else, because he's quite well versed in a lot of things. Yep. JR, tell them how they can reach Jess and us.
Yeah, you can definitely reach us here at Dysh, DYSH, at daintydysh.com. That's DAINTYDYSH.com. You can check Onika out on her website right now, onikadainty.com. What's going on onikadainty.com? As you drink that water, I can see you.
Yeah, I was a little parched.
You're a little parched.
I was a little parched. Some of my journal entries, poems. I got a couple of new poems up in there. Check them out. They're about love.
They're about love.
They're about love, because Onika's in love again.
One
love. Yeah, so check them out.
Yeah, so you can also check out Onika on Instagram, Best of Onika. You can check me out, Best of JR. If you are listening to us on Apple Podcasts,
give us a 5. You deserve a 5.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, please do give us a 5. Also, we would appreciate you leaving some feedback. What else do we like? We got to ask for the things that we want. So we'd also say, if you're listening to us or viewing us on YouTube or SoundCloud, give us a like there as well.
Some likes.
Yeah, give us some feedback, some positive feedback. Share some positive energy, some positive notes.
None of that negative shit.
Yeah, we don't mess with negative energy here. But that's it for me. Anything else from you, Onika?
Nope. That has been the dish of the day, like I said, and you guys have yourselves a very, very, very happy hump day.